Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Things Ayahuasca. My name is Anna Papadakis. I'm a body-centered therapist in Melbourne. And on this channel, Michael Guiron and myself explore plant medicine in depth. Michael's had well over a decade of experience working with the master plants. And today we're exploring how to choose your shaman, what to look for in a facilitator if you're looking to do plant medicine. Hello, Michael.
Hey guys, how are you? Hey Anna.
So there are more and more, as we're discussing, more and more opportunities to experience plant medicine, ayahuasca, wachuma, hape, the different medicines that are coming into the West. And I guess the same question is, if you are entering into the Amazon jungle, the same questions are, there's different things to look for, but how do you determine or distinguish who's someone that you want to work with? What are the things to look for that indicate the quality of the person that's conducting a ceremony?
Well, there's many ways that we can ideas and concepts that we can tap into. I think we can start with the general resonance and what feels right. Oftentimes, it will be important to actually have a bit of a conversation. If it's not a necessary thing, I think it's something that it's really necessary for us. Generally, if we're getting into something like that, to talk with the main facilitator and just see if we can get more details, see what it feels like when we speak into that person. One of the important things that we want to feel a good resonance about is that the person knows what he's talking about. And there is a strong emphasis on, the therapeutic model, and that there is a high awareness for, the traumatic responses, how to work with trauma, for example. So that person has an experience with that. So we know that they know how to deal with certain, aspect that may occur during the ceremony. So, for example, if the person has if he's not trauma informed, oftentimes it can be like quite a big problem. We want to have a look at that, the ability of the person to hold the person in a regression state, or if something is happening throughout, there's guidelines that we want to know that this person knows how to hold in a specific way that won't emphasize the trauma and rather,
won't be
instead of creating more
re-traumatizing.
damage. Yeah. So that's like one thing. And so we want to acquire about that if there is knowledge around those aspects. Oftentimes, there's a lot of touching and stuff like that in the West. People are, I found it a bit too touchy in terms of during ceremonial work. There's a lot of holding and things like that. If stuff happening, sometimes it's not the most advisable thing to be done. So there's all this concept that we wanna make sure that it's gonna be like aligned with yourself. If it's a woman with very sensitive traumatic events, need to be considered if a man is the right person for her, or a woman. And she needs to feel very safe and sound when she's dropping into a ceremonial space.
Yeah, I just want to go back to, because I think that's a really important point about whether someone will be touching you during the ceremony. Like, my understanding is that, it's really important not to touch any other person in a ceremonial space because of the energies that are happening. And so it's like the shaman isn't, this is what we spoke about in that episode of shaman versus therapist. The shaman isn't a therapist comforting you. And so if people are touching you, or it's not a place to be saved by. So you're looking for somewhere where someone who you're safe to be unsafe with, like you're safe to go into unsafe territory, rather than someone who's going to comfort you. Or so you're talking about people coming and touching and giving comfort or holding or doing some kind of hands-on whilst you're in the middle of a ceremony. And for you, that's a no-no.
That's right. If for example, there is a person going through a hard time, and there is, let's say, a type of regression of some sort, so people dropping into their wounds, into their traumatic events, it's okay to touch to a degree, but we need to ask before there is code of conduct that really have to be emphasized in the space. So we're not gonna overdoing something, or we need to know that there is a female helper in the space that can support that, for example, on those very sensitive issues. If you're just not just, but if you're exploring and it's a bit less, a hectic traumatic event like what I'm talking about, still we're not touching with each other, and we just know that we have to deal with the issues by ourselves, right? Because this is our work and no one can do it for us. And oftentimes over touching can create dissonance in the space. It's a path for different energies and transmissions of different things that can create a dissonance with the healing. So we want to try to avoid to know that you're gonna be held as much as you can. Obviously, it's okay to touch when really needed, and there is a consent and all that. But what I'm saying, it's not gonna be like all over you, touching you, and comforting you all the time and petting you and all that.
And I think if people, other people in the ceremonial space, other participants, you can be hearing people going through. You can be hearing people's going into difficult spaces, crying, in pain, and your own urge to comfort. You have to do. That's your own urge to comfort. But we can send comfort, like we're feeling for each other, but we're trusting the medicine. So, if someone's needing support, there's medicine to support them. There's medicine in the Ikaros, there's medicine in the other medicines that can be used, tobacco and hape and different things to support that person. It's not like they're left unsupported, but it's not like it's not about being comforted. And that distinction, I think, is something that you kind of learn as you go along, because often to build that understanding as you participate in this kind of medicine.
Yeah, that's right. And so this is just one example. We drop straight into the deep end, I guess. And basically we get in the resonance of what this person skills are. We want to know that the person has a skill. We also want to make sure oftentimes that we want to make sure that there's no sexual energy in the space as well. So it's another thing. So sexual energy, I mean the resonance of the facilitator. There's no sticky energy. Also the participants, right? There's a lot of that sticky energy nonetheless happening with humans. But we want to make sure that even if we come into a ceremony, that we hold in ourselves in a humble state. It's less about how I'm looking, and we want to come to a church in humble clothing. It's not about sexual energy when we come into therapy. So, the makeup, humble clothing, same with the facilitator. If the facilitator is coming, all open, exposed, and there's like sexual energy in the space, it's a bit of a warning signs. You want to, even if you're arriving and it doesn't feel right, it's okay to say, no, I'm not going to stay here. It doesn't feel right. So there's like warning signs when you get into the space and you see, look, there's a lot of sexual energy that is flowing in the space. And to make sure that I'm not going to be in a vulnerable state as I'm going into those spaces, because then we're going to start have those energetic cords between each other, and there is sexual energies that's traveling between people, conscious or unconscious. Oftentimes it's unconscious if people have just the sexual energy is not being held correctly, and then it just affecting the whole space. Especially with the facilitators, if something like that happens, it's affecting the whole ceremony, and it's not going to be about you, it's going to be about that. It will create more damage and so forth.
I just want to touch on that. It's about your own approach. So when you're coming to talk to or have that first conversation with a facilitator, are you being seduced in any way? It's that looking for the humility, like the seductive energy of sexual energy. Is this person wanting, like, how are you feeling in the presence of this person? That's something that you have to really feel in your own body, because those sexual energies can be subtle. And, that feeling of, is this person wanting admiration? Is this person being charismatic? I think those subtle seductions of when there's someone wanting to be special or wanting energy, that right. You have to really attune in your own sense of like how what's the gaze of this person, what's the attitude, how are they holding themselves, am I feeling like starry-eyed? You don't want to be starry-eyed around your facilitator. You want to feel that really tight boundary, like there is no leakage of any sort here, and that you have to like trust your own responses to that.
And the other warning lights around that, if the facilitator, oftentimes people that hold secrets, and the secretives around certain aspects of the ceremony, or it's like really secretive, and there's like, no, that's not for you to know, or that's for me. I'm not like the secretive energy that can be kind of like someone that holds secret has something to hide,
Yes.
And there's something under it, behind it, that you want to make sure it's not going to be on that level. Holding secrets or something that you shouldn't see. It's just for me. Obviously we have that private area, but there is, it's like this subtle nuance. Sometimes it's not very subtle, but it's a warning light. You want to see it's something that to look for.
Yes, and that's in that secretive thing. I think how you can tell that is just how open they are with answering questions. Is there any reluctance? Is there any withholding? So I'm kind of wanting to like give the guidepost here of if you ask a question, is it easy? Do you feel like there's no like reluctance to answer your questions, right?
Yeah, that's it. And basically, from that conversation, really you can gauge a lot of what's going on and what it feels right. You have your question answered. It's regarding if talking about your intention, why you're coming. It's important that you feel, all right, that makes sense for me. If the facilitator, the healer, helping you to realize what is that layer that you're going to work with, for example, there is a bit of a sense of directions for what you're going to do. Also, how long they're working with the plants, how much experience they have. I guess experience, people have to start somewhere, but at the same time, they need to be very, very confident in whatever they do, that they had good processes and they drank a lot of medicine before for quite a long time.
Yeah, and they're transparent about that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is Icaros, like singing the Icaros or knowing Icaros, an indicator of like the level of a space a facilitator is holding?
for sure, for sure. Yeah, so now we can have a look at the difference between the different types of facilitation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's different levels, so we need to have a look at it, and there's different levels of facilitation. You can have what we call just a facilitator, is someone that can you know can put music on a speaker, still holding very good space, very strong, but it's just the music on the speaker. It has to be also that alone need to be like quite very precise, and you need to know that it's at least they know what type of music they're putting on, or it's aligned with the medicine at least. There's a bit of a skill for that as well, I guess.
Well, the music is the medicine, right? It's not separate. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's recorded, but you know, it's one level. Um, there's less saying in the process, I guess, in terms of the interwoven of the ceremonial space and the ceremonial work. It's an entry level, we call it. Not
mhm.
saying it's not going to be a good journey. It could be a very good journey, but you know, it's an entry space. It's an entry point. It's not, you know, super involved. That's one layer. Then you can have people who sings with the guitar, and have type of, you know, guitar or any type of instruments, um, and some songs and some Icaros, I guess. So that's the next level up, and we see people singing with the medicine, and that's great level, as long as everything is obviously according to the will of spirit, and people working with whatever is required in the space.
I just want to recap a little bit to distinguish a song versus an Icaros. I think we should do a whole episode about Icaros, but just like Icaros is not just any old song, right?
Yeah, so I mean, you can sing a song, you can sing an Icaro. People, it's not exactly like that. You can
Mm-hmm.
have the Icaro and you can sing an Icaro. An Icaro is a traditional song of from a tribal, from a lineage that has a specific resonance. Oftentimes, they'll have a specific effect in the space. Some facilitators, they can know the Icaro, but they just sing the Icaro. They don't know exactly what the effect of the song would be and what is behind it, which is okay. There is still a level of transmission of the Icaro into the space, which is great. So this is still going under the same
Mm-hmm.
framework of that second level that people can sing. So that's, I don't know, I'm just came up with that levels of, I don't know if call it hierarchy, but
Yeah.
so you know that those songs, they have an effect in the space. There is ability to sing, and you know, to help the medicine to transmit in the space, and that will be an awesome ceremony. And then the next level up, and there's probably a couple more up after that, but there is a direct connection and deep knowing of the songs and the Icaros and what is required in the space, which is what is behind what is behind the person who sing it. It's the deep intention that is resonating, that is affecting the space directly when the song is being transmitted, when the Icaro is being transmitted. It can be really any song. And the moment that the intention behind it is doing what it does, it can be any song.
Wow.
And that will make the Icaro an Icaro.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what is behind it that will deliver the effect on the space. So it can be any song that you want to sing. I mean, obviously, to a degree of alignment with it can be most songs, right? But the intention behind it can deliver and create the effect of what is required in the space. So that level is required a really deep relationship with the plants. This is one level, and also a specific, I guess, gifts or qualities of the facilitator to be able to. I don't like to call the word control. Ayahuasca don't like the word control, but it's controlling the space and working with alignment with spirit. And that will deliver the space. So that would look like, for example, the ability to calm the energy down. If it's too strong and the medicine is going really crazy, there is a sense of, all right, we need to calm the energy down right now. It's going all the way up. Let's drop it down. So it's a grounding, deep grounding energy, or lifting energy, or cleansing energy. We want to purge. We want to take things out. We want to allow the purging and the things to come out. So that's like an outwards energy. So there's all these different energies, and their template is what behind the Icaro is what need to happen. So it's all each Icaro as well. When you get into those intricacies, they have their own capacities and their own invocation of different spirits, different elementals, protections. So you can bring different protection qualities into the space of different allies, whether it's the jaguar, the puma, the black puma, the anaconda, the condor, the eagle, whichever energy you want to invoke in the space that will lift, take down. You call in the anaconda, automatically it will go down, right? You call in the anaconda, it will go straight into the depth of the earth, into your gut, into your most horrific experiences, right? You call in upon the eagle, it will lift it up straight away. The eagle will bring it up all the way up. So it's all these different layers that make a difference. This is just one layer of the song itself that can create a different space, and it's the ability to find the needs in the space and what's the space need as we work collectively as a group, and we find in the different. It's the ability to navigate a ship, right? And where is the direction of the wind blowing when the sail is up there? So it's to bring the wind up, to calm the winds down, to go to the right, to go to the left, to dive down, to go up, and all those aspects. Yeah.
Like a conductor, feeling like, more of a conductor.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the conducting the space.
Yeah, so other things that you touched on there around like setting up a protective, like you want to feel like the facilitator knows how to make a safe space, and a really sort of like, we're talking about boundaries again, like really strong boundaries and like the container. And I think also like how some of the sort of practical questions I'm thinking of are like how many people are in a ceremony, because I've heard that there's ceremonies where there's like tens and tens or 100, like heaps and heaps of people, and I just can't see how you can be safe in that kind of like a really large circle.
Yeah, so there's two questions there. So in terms of boundaries, I think you can gauge from the facilitator when they speak and how they behave themselves. In terms of, you can open a sacred space, for example, but still the behavior of the facilitator is not aligned with that sacred space. So it doesn't mean that things won't be able to drop into the space because there's lack of spiritual hygiene there. And if it's a person that generally all permitting, all allowing, everything is fine, the deeper feminine kind of like approach that everything is okay and all welcome in the space. It's like, no, the ability to say no strongly and say that's allowed, that's not allowed, that's an indication. So a strong space is important for that. You want to hear that. That's allowed, that's not allowed, clear voice without apology. You may do, just that's the way it is. It's not hard. We just have to follow. I don't call them rules personally. I love to call them guidelines. It's guidelines. It's not rules. It's just a grown up approach to what makes the space work in the most aligned way. And then that the space is fully safe and there's no angry energies that coming from the outside, like angry ancestors or the heavy energies that float in from a person to person, because people come in with their own stuff, right? And we will have to clear them out as we're traveling into the journey. But if there's no ability to see that, even, that's a problem. So we want to know that, oftentimes you hear about, an entities that traveling from a person to person because the ceremony is all over the shop and it's like a circus. So there's no ability to clear it out or even to see it. So the hygiene of the space is all murky and it's not a safe space. Even if they say that there is a sacred space around, it's not a sacred space if it's unable to be held in a strong way. And one of the things that make it harder and harder is the more people you have in the space, the harder it is to do it. So, a ceremony, above, I'd say 20 people is like starting to get too big. 15 is great, 12, 13, 14, 15 is great. 20, 22, I mean, if you have a couple helpers, easy. If it's a strong facilitator, definitely possible. It's okay. It's doable, but you need more helpers, and it's good to know if the participants, if it's most of them first timer, it's not ideal. So you want to have like more experienced, supposedly participants. So, many of them were drinking before and people know how to hold themselves. You hope so, that people will know how to hold themselves properly in the space. But some ceremonies, I heard of like 50, 60 people, like big sessions. Not saying it's not good, I'm don't like judging, but it's just a different type of work. So the smaller the group, the more intimate it is. There is deeper there's a more intimate relationship between the facilitator and the participants. Above certain numbers, that's all becoming murky and you're just another person in the space. In a smaller group, when the facilitator if that's the way they work, oftentimes you want to have this personal relation to each person, that what's going on around the space. I mean, that's a curandero, right? Like a maestro. You wanna know what's going on for each person on that level. But that's a specific type of work that is for deep healing. So we engage in with each person and we know what this person is going for, what's the dosage, all these things that make a ceremony more intimate and more powerful. Saying that, as I said, powerful ceremonies can happen in big numbers if the groups know how to hold itself. The facilitators are good, are strong. There's good helpers, and it's not just a circus. And I mean, it can happen every now and then, but sometimes the will of the medicine is the will of the medicine. But it will make it. It will make more sense for those things to happen in a bigger groups if there is like explosions and a lot of chaotic energies and stuff like that will happen in bigger groups rather than a smaller group, because it's much more containable.
And I have a question for you in a ceremony that you can see. You're tuning in to each person, right, all the time, and sometimes you can tune into people. You're not needing to have a conversation with them. Like, you can sense or see or hear or know where people are at when you're conducting those certain things. So, because people, again, we're used to that therapeutic model where like there's a deep inquiry and you're feeling a person really close to you and that's how you feel seen and known. But you're with people. You might be sitting there and they might be sitting on the opposite side, but you're with everyone, right?
Yeah. Again, we're talking about a specific level of work and specific intention.
Yeah.
It's more on that deeper therapeutic model, or deep curanderismo, when there is a helping and deep help and support without touching, through the internal telepathic frequencies that we are able to tap and scan people and work with help and support, and helping the medicine support that person and going through the journey for whatever they need to go through. So it's delivering the energies of the medicine in a specific way and helping together with the medicine is our tools, right? She's helping us to, she's a tool. So it's how you are able to work with her as a tool to help to extract those heavy energies out, to help people to overcome those specific issues. And we can see, not always, not to every person. It's depend on the, there's depend on how many people and how, smaller ceremony it is and how focused you are on each person. But, the smaller the ceremony, the easier it is to do, obviously, because the more people you have, the more you need to focus a little bit on each person. In some tradition, they're focusing on one person for at least 2 hours. So you do what you call the psychic surgery. The shipibos, they sit down in front of you for 2 hours. They're just sitting down. There is a session on this person. Sometimes it's the whole ceremony. We just sing specifically to you, and that doing all the surgery and all the things that need to happen. So that's like the full, psychic surgery things that going on, and that's on that psychic surgery level, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess that's another thing to look for. Like, what other medicines, does the facilitator have understanding of and can use? Can they, what's the range of medicine that they have? Which is, I think, the whole thing that we're talking about. And another thing I wanted to say is, I think there's a lot of word of mouth and people are trusting recommendations, and that's great. But even if someone you know and love is recommending someone to you, I've seen people come to a space on recommendation without checking themselves, assuming that, oh, if it's right for you, it'll be right for me. And I think it's really important to do your own checking in with yourself, of asking these questions. So they're really good questions, like, are you trauma informed? Is there a sense of humility? Are my questions being answered easily? Are there boundaries and clarity and clear guidelines? And how do I feel with this person? Do I feel like they're holding something? And really trusting your own, taking responsibility, right? And trusting your own responses. And then, knowing that you're going to have to do that when you're in the ceremony. And if you're feeling not safe, like that, you have to go and find that in yourself as well. Yeah. In a ceremony. Yeah. Like, you can leave if like before a ceremony starts, you get somewhere and you go, this just doesn't feel right, I'm out of here. Good, do that. But if you're deep in it and you're feeling, then you have to call on your own deepest support that you always have wherever you are. And that sort of responsibility is a big thread of everything that we're talking about.
Yeah. Exactly. So it will be good to go outside of the room sometimes if it's too hectic. I had a friend, she got into a ceremony and it was very loud and hectic. It was just beautiful music, but it was just going Brazilian vibe, carnival vibe. And the jambe went out and it was very loud and everyone were singing, and it was just a different type of work altogether. It's just a different type of work. That's not the intention. The intention is to raise the frequency and bring happiness and being in a happy, hearty, praying state. But it wouldn't be for deeply healing, because it's not the frequencies of deepening yourself. So the jamba, and it was just like way too loud and going crazy in the space, and she just had to get out of there, and that's it. So you need to, if you can remove yourself from the environment, if it doesn't feel right where you're at the moment, it's not the frequencies of what you needed, find a comfortable space, or put earplugs, put yourself in a cocoon and wait until it's gonna be done. Everything has an end eventually.
Yeah, and sometimes even people who've thought they've had terrible times, over the years can look back and go, oh, that actually set me off. I thought that was crap or bad, or I was unsafe or whatever, terrible. But actually that touched a thread in me, and, what looked like a terrible thing wasn't. Over time, I see that something really important happened there. Another little quick question before we finish is, like, I think if people are running ceremonies weekly, like, that's not also a good sign, like the frequency of how often people are running sessions. Would you say that's true?
I don't know.
Not so much.
I don't know what's if the intention behind is a bit murky, maybe. They're too tired in the space, or they're not exactly aligned with spirit. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if that's what I do full time, I don't know. I'll be honest. Could be okay, but maybe not.
Well, I think we've given lots of things to look for and think about, and it's pretty, really not rocket science,
Yeah.
to ask questions and take responsibility and feel what it feels like, and take care of yourself and choose wisely.
Yeah, I think one of the easiest thing to do that I like to share often is doing that, tuning into your heart. It's like doing that inner divination. Just having a chat with that person. You closing your eyes. You give a moment. You tap in on your heart slightly. That's what I like to do. Should I go to the ceremony? Yes or no? 2 options. It's a yes, no question. Yes or no, and waiting for the answer. That's it. If it's a yes, it's a yes. Great. If it's a no, it's a no. There's no, maybe consider that, but it sounds really good, but all these things, your mind is going to take over. If it's a no, it's a no. Get it over and done with. The heart knows the best. So we're not trying to invent the wheel. We're just tuning into our heart. What my heart tells me right now, it's a yes or a no. That's it. Keep it simple, and that simplifies a lot of the things for us that we make way too complicated often.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks, Anna.
That was a very nice practical session. Next time we're gonna talk about chaper, one of the really beautiful medicines that you can experience in a ceremony. Very, very sacred, and takes a while to get to know. So I'm looking forward to delving into chaper, tobacco. Thank you so much for joining us, and all the links to Michael's work below. Please support us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much, guys. Much appreciated.